A super tanker the size of a city block is forcing its way through a United States naval blockade at 2 in the morning. Iranian attack boats are swarming like sharks around American destroyers. Chinese warships have their radars locked on target. And somewhere in the darkness of the Arabian Sea, stealth fighters are moving into position for what could become the opening shots of World War III. What you're about to hear is how a single miscalculation in the Strait of Hormuz nearly dragged 3 superpowers into a shooting war that would have changed everything. And the terrifying part, this scenario is playing out in war rooms right now. Picture the most dangerous 20 miles of water on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. Every day, 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow choke point between Iran and Oman. Control this strait, and you control the global economy. Lose it, and gas prices don't just spike, they explode. Which is exactly why the US Navy has positioned destroyers here to enforce a blockade that Iran considers an act of war. The tension has been building for weeks, but tonight, everything changes. At exactly 2:24 a.m., radar screens aboard the USS Destroyer light up with dozens of high-speed contacts launching simultaneously from the Iranian coastline. These aren't fishing boats. They're Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps attack craft, each one loaded with missiles and crewed by operators who've trained their entire lives for this moment. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is the massive Chinese supertanker that's decided to run the blockade with Beijing's full backing. China isn't looking for an all-out war with the United States. They're too smart for that. Instead, they're testing American resolve with a strategy that's both brilliant and terrifying. They've positioned a Type 052D destroyer just outside the strait, using its powerful radar systems to track every American move. The plan is simple: apply just enough pressure to create a corridor for their tanker, while giving Washington plausible deniability to back down. But plans have a way of falling apart when bullets start flying. Here's where the chess match becomes a knife fight. Iran launches patrol boats, reconnaissance drones, and kamikaze drones from multiple points along their coastline, overwhelming the American sensor network. This isn't random. This is a coordinated saturation attack designed to create confusion and exploit the one weakness every Navy fears: too many targets, not enough time to engage them all. An American Arleigh Burke destroyer immediately shifts to combat readiness, its Spy-6 radar tracking multiple threats simultaneously, while P-8 Poseidon aircraft and MQ-9 Reaper drones build a real-time picture of the battlefield from above. The first shot comes at 2:43 a.m. and it changes everything. An Iranian Ababil 3 drone, ignoring repeated warnings, penetrates the destroyer's 5 nautical mile security zone. Rules of engagement are triggered instantly. The ship's Mark 38 25mm cannon tears the drone apart, sending carbon fiber debris scattered across the water. But that single defensive shot just lit the fuse on a powder keg that 3 nations have been sitting on for months. Within seconds, the Chinese destroyer switches from search mode to combat tracking, its Type 346 radar locking onto the American warship. This isn't just aggressive posturing. They're providing targeting data to Iranian coastal missile batteries, which immediately fire a pair of C-802 anti-ship cruise missiles at the American destroyer. In the Combat Information Center, operators start shouting coordinates as the Spy-6 radar screen turns red with incoming threats. This is the moment every sailor dreads: multiple missile tracks, closing fast with seconds to respond. The Aegis combat system takes over at 2:43 a.m., launching 2 SM-6 interceptors from the Mark 41 vertical launch system in less than a second. High above the strait, bursts of light illuminate the night sky as the interceptors destroy their targets. But this is just the opening round of what's about to become a technological slugfest between some of the most advanced weapon systems on Earth. The Phalanx close-in weapon system spins up to maximum speed, its 20mm Vulcan cannon scanning for any threats that penetrate the outer defense layer. Iran responds with exactly what American war planners have been losing sleep over: a massive coordinated assault using Shahed drones and rocket-armed fast boats designed to overwhelm even the most sophisticated defense systems through sheer numbers. But the US Navy has a weapon that most people have never heard of, and it's about to change the entire dynamic of this battle. See Whip Block 3. This electronic warfare system doesn't jam Iranian communications indiscriminately. Instead, it surgically disrupts key data links, causing drone clusters to lose synchronization and fall into the sea like broken toys. The swarm attack begins to fragment, but the Chinese tanker continues its dangerous run through the strait, protected by the electronic shadow of the People's Liberation Navy destroyer. At 2:50 a.m., the situation escalates dramatically when a second Chinese Type 052D destroyer emerges from the southern side of the strait, taking position on the tanker's port side. China is doubling down, using J-15 Flying Shark fighter jets from a nearby carrier group to maintain constant surveillance, while their destroyers jam American radar with high-powered electronic interference. This is when the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launches their saturation attack, everything they have: swarm drones, fast missile boats, and multiple C-802 cruise missiles, all targeting the American destroyer simultaneously. In the Combat Information Center, the clean digital picture of the battlefield disappears into chaos. Dozens upon dozens of overlapping targets, each one potentially lethal, each one demanding an immediate response. The SM-6 interceptors and close-in weapon systems work frantically to neutralize the incoming threats, but statistics are against them. At 2:56 a.m., the defensive shield finally cracks. An Iranian suicide drone, launched from what appeared to be a civilian fishing vessel, slips through the outer defense layer and explodes near the destroyer's superstructure. The blast damages satellite communication antennas and tactical data links, effectively blinding the American warship just when it needs coordination with the fleet most desperately. This is the moment the Chinese tanker has been waiting for. With communications disrupted and electronic jamming providing cover, it switches off its identification transponder and makes a high-speed dash through the gap in the blockade line. But the US Navy didn't become the world's dominant naval force by folding under pressure. At 3:17 a.m., an MQ-9 Reaper drone operating beyond the range of Iranian surface-to-air missiles penetrates the smoke and electronic interference using its multispectral targeting system. The drone locks onto the Chinese supertanker's heat signature and immediately relays high-resolution intelligence data to an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye aircraft flying 100 miles away. This is network warfare at its most sophisticated level. Even with damaged communications, the Navy begins rebuilding its tactical picture by switching to anti-jam Link 16 channels. The mysterious electronic signals that Iranian and Chinese radar operators have been detecting in the Arabian Sea suddenly reveal themselves as every commander's worst nightmare. Two F-35C Lightning stealth fighters emerge from the darkness like technological ghosts. These aren't conventional fighter jets announcing their presence. Their APG-81 radars operate in low probability of intercept mode, making them virtually undetectable to enemy sensors. Iranian radar operators see only flickering ghost signals that appear and disappear without ever establishing a stable target lock. What happens next demonstrates why the F-35 program, despite all its criticism and cost overruns, represents a fundamental shift in how wars will be fought. The F-35Cs integrate data from the MQ-9 Reaper, the P-8 Poseidon, the E-2D Hawkeye, and the damaged destroyer into a single coherent kill chain. They become forward sensor and targeting nodes, providing laser-precise coordinates for strikes from beyond the horizon. The Super Hornets they vector into the battle space launch AGM-158 long-range anti-ship missiles that autonomously navigate through Chinese defenses to strike the command and control nodes of the lead Type 052D destroyer. A single missile impact destroys the primary radar array on the Chinese warship, and with it, any ability to continue escorting the tanker. The electronic shield protecting the massive vessel evaporates in an instant. Meanwhile, MH-60R Seahawk helicopters use Hellfire missiles to systematically destroy Iranian swarm boats at the outer edges of the blockade line. What began as a coordinated shark pack attack dissolves into chaotic retreat toward the Iranian coastline near Bandar Abbas. By 3:40 a.m., the lead Chinese destroyer, its primary radar array still smoking from the precision strike, is forced into emergency defensive posture. Beijing's careful calculation has failed catastrophically. What was supposed to be a measured gray zone operation to test American resolve has resulted in a multi-billion-dollar warship, effectively mission-killed and international humiliation on the world's most watched waterway. The second Chinese destroyer deploys multispectral smokescreens and active decoys to escort its damaged sister ship, as both vessels retreat toward the safer waters of the Gulf of Oman. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps attack, once a precisely coordinated swarm assault, becomes a panic withdrawal as Esmet Whip Block 3 electronic warfare systems jam their data links and Hellfire missiles eliminate their fast attack boats one by one. The waters that minutes earlier buzzed with the sound of Shahhed drones are now littered with carbon fiber wreckage and burning fuel slicks. In the middle of the strait, the Chinese supertanker that started this entire confrontation finds itself abandoned and defenseless. The massive ship shuts down its engines and floats silently among the debris, with the hull of the American Arleigh Burke destroyer looming nearby. Despite damage to its superstructure, the American warship maintains position. Its Mark 45 5-inch main gun trained on the tanker's bridge. By 4 a.m., the U.S. Navy has re-established complete control of the sea lane. The blockade isn't just restored, it's now an imposed fact backed by demonstrated firepower. But here's what should keep every world leader awake at night. This entire confrontation balanced on a knife's edge between limited engagement and global catastrophe. If China hadn't provided radar support and electronic jamming, Iran's swarm attacks would have been defeated much sooner, leaving their forces completely exposed to retaliation. If Washington had chosen escalation over containment, F-35Cs, Super Hornets, and Tomahawk cruise missiles could have expanded this from a local skirmish into a full-scale strike campaign within minutes. The real question isn't whether the US Navy can win a fight in the Strait of Hormuz. The question is how much everyone is willing to risk before the entire region explodes into a conflict that would make every previous war look like a minor disagreement. Because the next time tensions spike in these waters, the miscalculation might not be contained to a single night, and the consequences might not be limited to damaged radar arrays and bruised egos.